Brad, I'm going to begin with you. Your firm is giving media assistance to, I think it's 7 former members of Bergdahl's platoon who have spoken out. There are some accusations out there that many of these critiques surrounding Bergdahl and his reasons for leaving the base are part of a coordinated Republican effort to attack the White House. Is there any truth to that?
There's absolutely no truth to that claim. It's almost bizarre that I've been branded as a GOP strategist, despite the fact that I have never once been a member of the Republican Party. It's easy to try and go after me, but I'll tell you, I have voted in the presidential tickets over the years for candidates from both sides.
Okay, but here's the question, though, that your partner at your firm, Rick Grenell, is a Republican strategist, a former aide to Mitt Romney. How is that not a partisan agenda?
He's not running this. These guys were yelling out on Twitter, begging for somebody to listen to their story. For 5 years, they've held this in. It's been haunting them. That man walked out on them 5 years ago, but he's been in their lives every day. So they reached out. Rick was the first one to find it. He did help a little bit facilitating the first couple things to get this thing started, but you can ask hundreds of reporters. I've been their primary contact. I'm the one that's helping these soldiers.
This story has been reported, especially about him being a potential deserter, for years now by a number of different organizations. It's nothing new, but since he has been released, it has become an issue. Are you saying that they reached specifically out to Rick Grenell?
Well, they were reaching out to a number of people. Cody Full, one of the soldiers who was brave enough to speak out after holding this in for so long, was putting things all over Twitter and was reaching out to notable names. Rick is a notable name, and yes, he is a Republican, but he was just the first one to recognize that this is a story that needs to be told. He passed it over to me. He said, "Brad, everyone else at Capital Media Partners, this looks like an interesting story. Would you be interested in working with these guys?" Yeah,
it does seem.
I did.
You have to. It is suspect, though. You have to admit that they would reach out to a Republican strategist, and then your reply is that it's not part of a Republican effort. Lanny Davis,
so are you implying that I am a closet Republican?
No, I'm not.
I voted for Kerry in 2004.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your firm, and I'm talking about Rick Grenell.
I'm running this, so can you explain to me how?
You said they reached out to Mr. Grenell. That's why.
They reached out to him.
Right.
They reached out to a number of people.
Who is a Republican strategist.
He was recently named by Time as one of the 140 most best Twitter feeds of the year, along with people like Bill Clinton. He's a notable name.
Okay.
He's very public.
Lanny, what do you make of this?
Well, first of all, I don't quite care about the political motives or political affiliations. I care about the president who I support not fully explaining this decision. So as a crisis manager, there are 3 things that bother me with the handling of the decision, and I disclose fully I'm a Democrat who supports Barack Obama. First, I don't think the president addressed the major elephant in the room about the issue of desertion and whether he's going to face military justice and evaluating whether it's true or not. I haven't passed judgment. The president should have addressed that up front. Secondly, the president should have told us more about the conditions to restrain and keep away from civilized people these murderers that have been released and are now in Qatar. What are the conditions of their detention? Are they allowed to go back to Afghan and kill more people? They're terrorists and they're murderers. The president hasn't told us that. And thirdly, he hasn't explained why he did not consult with Dianne Feinstein and the Republican senior members of both intelligence committees. If he's afraid of a leak, is he going to tell Senator Feinstein that? Is he going to tell the American people that he couldn't consult with Congress because he was worried about a leak? If that's the case, tell us. So on those 3 issues, he hasn't explained himself very well. As a matter of crisis management, that's just not good.